Hi everyone and welcome back to the Couch Buddies. I am Blade.
And I am DJ, and guys, welcome to the 11th Couchisode. How have you guys been doing in the last few days that we haven't seen each other? What are you doing?
Say my name.
Eisenberg.
That's right.
Guys, welcome to the 11th Couchisode, and just to kick it right off, we're going to give you today another one of those great games of our youth, and we're going to be talking about them for a bit. But before that, I want to tell you guys that we have a very special episode today, or a very special Couchisode today, actually, that is going to have some mystery around it. So during the course of this Couchisode today, we're going to give away two of the games that we're going to be talking about. And the way we're going to give these games away is hidden throughout the video. We're going to put a piece of text or a phrase or something like that is relevant or was actually included in the game that we're going to be talking about. And this is going to be a very brief appearance, guys. So stay sharp. Look at the video, see if you can find this phrase. And in order to participate on this giveaway, you're going to have to send us an email to the email address that you're going to leave down below. If you send us an email with the phrase that you found to that email address, the first one, so this is going to be on a first come, first served basis, the first one to do that, we're going to give away this game. We're not going to tell you about the games right now. We're going to talk about that later on. So guys, stick around. We want to keep you with us, because today we're going to talk about some really, really good games that you guys are going to enjoy. Blade, let's kick it right off, and you open the show today.
Yeah, sure. So we have to talk about good games, right?
Let's make it.
Now, I'll make this a very good game that I played back in '93, if I'm not mistaken. This game was published by Virgin, actually. They had just recently acquired Westwood Studios, and they were tasked to make a game and sell a game that could outperform Eye of the Beholder 2. So the game they came up with was Lands of Lore. I don't know if you know this one.
Okay. I have this impression that I didn't really play the game that much. I have this impression that it was kind of like a first-person RPG, something like that.
It used most of the traditional engine back then. Traditional in a sense. Well, you had somewhat a 3D game. It was not real 3D, where you could navigate the map. You had a main screen where you had the scenario and the enemies. You had the image of yourself and your party, your inventory, what items you could use, and every other item you could use would also be on this screen. This was very typical on RPGs back then. And
with the inventory, and then you could just use several attacks, spells, and stuff like that.
Exactly. But to keep this short, this was basically a dungeon crawler, and it had a very nice plot. And you had basically King Richard, that was the ruler of Gladstone Keep, that got an information that a witch, a very old witch called Scotia, got her hands on a ring called the Nether Mask that would allow her to shapeshift and gave her other extra capabilities and made her extra dangerous. So he basically tasks you to find the Ruby of Truth, and you go out on a quest to find it. And when you actually find the keeper of the ruby, he's almost dying, and he tells you that the ruby is gone, and you need to go back to the keep to tell King Richard that basically the ruby is lost. And when you get there, Scotia got there first and poisoned the king. Then you need to go find a solution to save the king. You need to find an elixir to save him. And I'm not going to tell you much more about the plot. I'll let everyone who hasn't played it explore it. But it's a very nice game. It doesn't take too long to complete, but it's a very, very nice game. And Westwood actually came up with a good idea back then. The game had quite good reviews. It came first on floppies, and then it was released a second time on DVD with audio and speech. And it actually had the voice of Patrick Stewart, which was awesome back then.
Okay. Yeah.
Still is. This is quite a nice game. If you hadn't got the chance to try this one, you can easily find this on GOG. There is the second and the third one there also. They are quite different from the first one, but give this first one a go. It's actually a nice game. It's very fun. It's quite enjoyable and playable today. If you haven't touched this one, please do. This is a very good and fun game and has a nice story.
I wasn't really a fan of dungeon crawlers, to be honest. I never
was
played
such a
them
huge fan.
that much. I think that I don't know. I liked something more. I know that the stories of these were like very involving, or they were very captivating. But
Yeah.
in the end, these stories were just, usually they were told on text. At least back in this era.
Yeah.
And although I would like to read a lot on point-and-click adventure games, unfortunately, in other types of games, I don't know. I just didn't have much of the hots for it because I didn't
Lazy
really
bastard.
It's not about reading because I read other types of games, but this one,
Right.
this type of games, it is what it is. It is
Yeah.
what it is. But maybe maybe it will be an acquired taste. It's like some people don't like wine, and then eventually, when they are 35 years old, they start drinking wine and they love it. So
I'll stick to the lazy bastard.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. So, if you want to call me names, then I'll accept it. I'll accept it. All right. So the game I'm gonna bring today. So man, it was a masterpiece, and this is one of those that I didn't. It was a masterpiece, but it wasn't really one of those like all-time classics. Like if we talk about Diablo, if we talk about Super Mario, if we talk about some other, Target Renegade for the Spectrum. It's not really one of those classics, but it's an excellent game that for me, it's a game that I still play today, and very often because
I'm
mainly
curious.
the soundtrack. But we'll talk about it. So the game I'm going to talk about today is Interstate 76, and this is from 1997. It was developed and released by Activision for the PC only, and man, it was a masterpiece of a game that I still play to this day, 24 years later of the game's release date. And oh wow, I mean, it's amazing. For those who don't know, Interstate 76 is a 3D auto combat simulation game with a very distinctive 70s vibe. It's the characters, the southern US accents, the whole plot that takes into an alternative reality where the 1973 oil crisis was actually never resolved. And all of this was just what 13-year-old me needed to have as a justification to go out with my car and just start blowing shit up. That's pretty much it. If any of you actually are not aware of what was the 1973 petroleum crisis or the oil crisis, this was an embargo that the Arab countries actually started embargoing the oil supplies to countries that were supporting Israel during the Yom Kippur War. So this was like back in the 70s and was a very rough time. I mean, back into the game. I have to kick it off with the astonishing soundtrack that this game had, and because it just has this funky vibe. Just listen to it. So yeah, I mean, guys, this is like it makes me groove so much. Oh man, this is just amazing. So again, with the corrupt police force that it's part of this game, and they were secretly working side by side with criminals that want to control the oil supplies and the prices, among other criminal activities that we're doing. Vigilantism actually goes a whole new level, and they are actually the peacekeepers in this game. The game introduction gives us a whole backstory about what we're about to face, and especially with Jade Champion, which is one of those vigilantes that is being murdered. So the introduction already gives us this clue. Yeah. Suspect that was some foul play at hand. Torres, which was Jade's partner, will team up with Jade's brother called Groove Champion, which is the character that we play with, to seek out on a mission of uncovering the mystery of her murder, as well as going for revenge. The gameplay, I mean, it was simply brilliant. The cars could be fitted with multiple weapons that goes from cannons to machine guns, and they really had like awesome damage physics, such as damage to the car would not just impact the exterior, and you would see, the hoods and the taillights breaking up and stuff like that, but also would affect internally the car, like the engine, the suspension, the tires, and so on. Yeah. In fact, there are several missions in this game that if your tires are all blown up, you might as well just die and restart, because you're not going to be able to do anything or get out of there. So eventually you will just take the disadvantage and die.
Yeah.
Additionally, all the vehicles that we see in this game are actually faithful replicas, both physically and specifications-wise. They just changed the names of them due to licensing issues, which was something that was very common back in the late 90s. For example, the car that we use along the story mode, that was Jade's car, that is given to her brother, is the Picard Piranha, that is based off a Plymouth Barracuda, which is a very famous American muscle car. There was also a multiplayer mode here called that was a sort of a deathmatch with several vehicles available and also a wide variety of weapons. And it was basically an arena where you just destroy you guys, each other until last man standing. That was pretty much it. For those who don't know, actually, this game in 1997, the magazine Computer Gaming World actually had Interstate 76 as a runner-up for Action Game of the Year. It didn't win this title because the game had some graphical limitations in terms of its engine, and the award ended up going to Quake 2, which in 1997, of course, it was probably winning all the awards that existed anyways. However, it did end up winning the the award for artistic achievement. The game has an expansion pack called Interstate 76 Nitro Pack that added some, very needed graphical improvements and support, as well as a higher quality soundtrack, which is really, really worth it. And it had a sequel called Interstate 82, which was released in 1999. Both of these games are actually, there is a pack with both of them available on GOG for, I think it's €5 or something like that they cost. Again, Blade, this was like one of those, exclusively masterpieces or exclusive masterpieces that I still have on my arsenal. And
this is a one-of-a-kind game. You can't find anything like this anywhere.
I was starting to be a bass player back then, and the whole groove about the soundtrack of this game,
it was awesome.
Oh man, it was that 70s vibe. It was so good. I mean, the music back then was just, sorry, old people talk that I'm going to. All right, so what do you have for us today, Blade? I'm going to shut up with this one.
Okay, no, it's hard to top that one. That's a very nice game. Seriously nice game, man.
That I might have something to top this one after this, but bring it on.
Yeah,
bring it on.
Let's see. So I'm going to bring another game today, and it's quite a game that I quite enjoyed back then. It came out in 2001, 20 years ago. And it was released by Russian Naval Entertainment. Oh yeah.
What is that?
And the first game they worked on, I think it was Rage of Mages. It was known as Allods in Russia. And later, quite a few years later, they released Allods Online, if you remember the game. That's an MMO. But enough about that. They created this game. And for me, it came out of nowhere. I didn't know this game was coming out, and I got my hands on it, and I just loved it. It's a mix between Heroes of Might and Magic and Magic the Gathering. The game is called Ether Lords. It was just an awesome game and very enjoyable. You have Ether Lords 2 that improved a lot of the original formula. The second one was actually quite nice also, but I enjoyed the first one. And that's the one I'm talking about. The story was very simple. You had a world that was governed by a force called Ether, and you had the four races that would just fight to control that force and become the ultimate controller, the master of all Ether, called the White Lord. These races were the Chaots and the Kinets, if I remember right, Synthets and Vitals. They were all quite different from each other. And the way you played this game, you just selected one of the races you wanted to play. There were two campaigns. When you selected one of the two of them, you get the same campaign, and the same for the other two. You got just two different campaigns, not four. And it played exactly like Heroes of Might and Magic in the world map. You just had your cities, you could explore, you could get resources, and then get into fights to unlock the way. And these fights would work exactly like Magic the Gathering. You were just like playing cards, but with animated tunes in 3D. It was awesome, and you'd see them fighting when you pitted them against each other. It was really, really awesome. And I talked about Heroes of Might and Magic 3 in a recent Portuguese video. And it was one of the games, probably the games I loved the most on a strategy game of all times, and I still play it today. And this was awesome. An extremely awesome game.
I actually went out and grabbed it because you talk about the third one. You said that it was a very good one. I grabbed it, but as you can see by my background, I'm no longer at home. I'm back to the home country for a few weeks, so I didn't actually have the chance to play it. But I'll probably give it a go.
Give it a go.
I remember seeing it. I know the game, but I never actually played it that much to go into it. So I followed your advice of that episode, and I'm
just
going
try it out. It takes a bit to understand the full mechanics and start to get into the game because it's very complex. This game was actually quite simpler than Heroes of Might and Magic, but it was quite awesome. And you had that different combat system, and you just went into that Magic the Gathering territory, and it was fun. And out of curiosity, after they released this game a few years, then I know New World Computing released Heroes of Might and Magic 4, and then they closed doors, they shut down. And then the Might and Magic license went to Ubisoft. And the first Heroes of Might and Magic Ubisoft released was the 5th one, and it was developed by Nival Entertainment, the guys that made the Etherlords game.
I've as I said, I didn't play those games though. I'm very curious to try. I mean, obviously, when you mentioned that it involved like some Magic the Gathering stuff, I actually thought that it would be a complicated game, because if you look Magic the Gathering itself, the card game,
it's very complex. This is slightly simpler on the gameplay, on the combats, but it's quite a fun game and it's quite enjoyable. Seriously, you should check this one out. I'd still tell you, if you have to choose, still play Heroes of Might and Magic, the third one. It's the best one by far.
I will. Thanks for bringing it up, Blade. I'm sure that some people, if I haven't played this game, so you guys, if you did play this game, just let us know about it, because it's.
If not, just try it out.
If not, you should try it out. Exactly.
We might give you a hand, or not. We'll see.
Well, yeah, we'll see. We'll see about that. So. I'm ready to bring another one, which is quite an amazing one also. And I'm not going to spend much time introducing it. This one was one of those games that it was a big hit for the PlayStation 1, but also on PC. And I'm going to talk about Heart of Darkness from 1998. Ooh. Yes, that was so fun, this game. And it was produced by the French studio Amazing Studio. And I mean, it's an absolute classic that we have to talk about. Again, not part of that batch of, very well-known games and stuff like that. But for example,
was so awesome.
It was a success on the PlayStation, although it was not supposed to be, and we're going to talk about it why. So, Art of Darkness is a cinematic platformer with a very cool 2D cartoon-like animations that, for me, they are very visually appealing, but at the same time, they keep the tone of this game and the plot of it very dark and mysterious. The main protagonist, it's a boy called Andy that is being abused by its teacher for sleeping in classes. We do later find out that Andy suffers from nyctophobia, which is fear of the dark. On the same day, actually, Andy is instructed by his teacher to watch the solar eclipse. Andy brings along his beloved companion, his dog called Whiskey. While watching the eclipse, I don't know if you remember this intro. The intro was it made me feel for the dog, actually. And while he was watching the eclipse, the dark forces steal Whiskey away and force Andy to travel to an alien world called the Darklands in order to save his dog. So in this planet, Andy will will have to fight the creatures of the shadows in very hostile environments to reach the Master of Darkness and free his beloved companion. In the process, our protagonist befriends an alien race called the Amigos. Not sure if you remember that. That was very, very funny.
I remember it was a great game, but I don't remember much about the details.
Yeah, I mean, the details is exactly where this game thrives, you know. He knows this. He befriends this civilization, this alien civilization called the Amigos, that are going to help him through his quest. Now, if you're hearing about this plot and you are thinking that this sounds familiar to the plot of another world in some way, like alien world, alien civilization that you befriend, you know, you are actually right on thinking so, because this game was created by no other than Eric Shihai, the creator of Another World.
Yeah.
So when I played this game, I felt this vibe also, and I didn't know any of this. You know, it was much later that I actually investigated who the game had been developed by, and when I found out that this was developed by Eric, I thought, yeah, so that's it. That's the feel from it, like
Yeah.
the animations when he would fall and stuff like that. And this is one of the things that was really, really, it was really sometimes disturbing about the game. Despite being a game that involves a child, sometimes it was really unsettling to see some of what the monsters could actually do to kill him. I mean, he could be crushed, swallow, and there's even a part where you see some of the flying bats or whatever, the dark creatures, they pick him up and they snap his spine. You can hear the crack of his bones.
I
Like,
remember that.
and it was like, I mean, this is definitely something you wouldn't see on the days today. But, you know, even harmless shadows, you see a shadow on the wall and the shadow grows up to you and swipes at you, that would make you fall from the ledge. So it was a game that it wasn't, you know, at the start wasn't very obvious. But again, the game itself was actually, it wasn't that it would be very difficult, because it would also give you some hints on what you need to do. Like, for example, when you have to climb on walls, there is a sort of creature, or sorry, it's a lizard actually, that starts climbing the walls also, so that you understand that you can do that,
Yeah.
the climbing the walls too. So, you know, nevertheless, in my opinion, this game is just quite pleasant to play with, and it has very intuitive mechanics. They provide a good experience, while at the same time they're keeping the player challenged with some more difficult, you know, enemy-ridden sections. Now it comes the part of, and what I want to talk about the development of this game, because this was the reason why, and I think this was the reason that Heart of Darkness wasn't such a hit, was because of his lengthy development. So they had some hiccups with some major players on the market, such as Sega, because this was actually supposed to be a Sega game. When the game was actually publicly unveiled in 1995 at the European Computer Trade Show, there were already plans to have it developed for the CDO and the Amiga CD. However, as the time was passing, because the game was in development for so long, this game actually started being developed in 1992. And when it was actually unveiled in 1995, as the time was passing, the systems became less relevant and not commercially viable. I mean, if you look at this game came out in 97, the CDO and the Amiga CD were, you know, I wouldn't say they're practically dead consoles, but they were not very commercial, you know, viable at the time.
Yeah.
And the final nail in the coffin was in 1996 when Sega signed a contract with them to have this title as an exclusive for the Sega Saturn, to be released on October of that same year, and where they would hold off the PC version release so that they could, you know, make it as exclusive for Sega for a while. As the date was approaching, the guys from Amazing Studios stated that the game would only be ready in late 1997, and Sega just didn't want to wait for that long. In the end, the game ended up being released for PC and PlayStation, and it was released in Europe for the console, the Sony console, on July 4th, 1998, and the PC on the 31st of the same month.
Yeah, that's when I remember playing it on the PC.
Again, I played it also on the PC, but I remember that I remember seeing this on the PlayStation actually as a very good game, though it was quite, you know, adapted to the hardware of the console. But again, it was such an amazing one, and I remember having so much fun on this, and probably now I remember why, because that was giving me the feel of Another World. That game, it was giving me the same feeling, and I played Another World for so long. It was just, I mean, it was just so amazing.
Another World was epic when it came out.
Yeah,
Still is today.
Heart of Darkness, guys, unfortunately not available on any digital platform.
Yeah.
And you guys gonna have to, you know, look it up. It is out there. I know that it is out there, but it's definitely a great one that you can try.
Check Google. He's your friend.
Exactly. Uncle Google is your friend, as usual.
Yeah.
Blade, I think we can wrap it up for today, no?
Yeah. And DJ, we had some surprises for people. So I think people were just looking at the screen quite well.
Exactly, guys. So if you came out this far and you watched the video until the end, so we're going to tell you exactly which games we're going to give away, so that, you know, we're going to make this a little bit easier for you, so that you guys are not, they're waiting for the or scouring around to it. So the games we're going to give away are going to be Interstate 76, the original game with the Nitro pack, and Blade. What's the other one?
The other one is Etherlords, and we're giving away a pack with Etherlords 1 and 2 for Steam.
Ooh, yeah! Guys, as we explained in the beginning of the video, during the gameplay of these two games, you're gonna find these phrases that you have to find, actually. So stay sharp. If you didn't catch them, go back to it, see if you can find them. And what you have to do is basically write those phrases to our email address that we're going to put down below. We're going to leave the link right there. Sorry, the email address right there. This is going to be, as I said, on a first come, first served basis. So if you send us an email with the phrase and the name of the game, the first one that is going to send that email is going to win this game. And we're going to announce the winners next week on our next Couchisode. Just one special note: if you wouldn't like your name to be shared with everyone in the audience, please let us know on the email. We can mention as anonymous. It doesn't matter. I mean, it's up to you. It's your choice. But again, we're going to announce the winners next week, next Couchisode, the winners of these two games. And this is, just for you guys to know, this is not a sponsored offer or anything. We're just going to go to our pockets, pull out some of the money that we have right now, which is our own. And we're going to just buy some games out for you guys because you've been fantastic. You've been keeping up with the comments, and we love that. So, guys, thank you very much again. Stick around for it. And I hope that next week we'll be congratulating one of you as the lucky winner of these games. Or two of you, actually. Well, it might be the same person. We don't know. The same person might win both. We never know.
Let's see. Let's wait and see.
All right, guys. Thank you very much for coming by today. Hope you enjoyed it. As usual, leave a like if you like, leave a dislike if you didn't like. Consider subscribing your channel, and we'll see each other next week on the next Couchisode.
See you guys next week. Thank you again for putting up with us till the end. Find those phrases, win some games, and we'll catch you next week. And game on, everyone.
Game on, guys. See you next week.